Hello folks, welcome to my channel. So I have started a brand new series on API testing using Postman. So in this series I will be talking about what is an API, what are the rules of the API, how it works and different types of API. I will be talking about HTTP methods. So different types of HTTP methods like put, post, patch, delete, get. So we will be talking about this in very detailed manner. So in this series I will be talking about response and JSON. So how we have to write the JSON and how we have to write the XML form of data. uh, After that I will be talking about scripts and variables. So whenever we are sending some request to the server, so what's the response we are getting and how we have to validate the responses, how we have to store that variables into environment, local and global variables, and how we have to access in Postman, what how we can use the snippets, what are the API chaining, what are the driven testing, so what are the API chaining benefits. So in this series I will be talking in a very great detail. So let's get started our today's agenda. So today's agenda is to complete this introduction to API testing. So in this topic I will be talking about what is client and what is server, and the separate example for client and separate example for the server. Now examples of client and servers together. Now the next point will be client server architecture. So how many client and server architecture is there? So one tier, two tier, three tier, and which tier we are using in a daily basis. So why we are using any architecture and why it is beneficial for that. Now what is an API, examples of an API, and how API works. So types of API, so different types of API, REST and SOAP. API and web service differences, what are the differences between API and web services, and different HTTP methods. So let me talk it here. So the first question arises is what is client. Now let me draw one diagram. So let's say this is our desktop. So this is our desktop. So this is acting like a client. So this is client. Why we are saying client? Because whenever we want to do some operations on the client, so whenever we want to do some operations, so this is the asker. So it always asks to someone. So whenever something is asks, so whenever something is asks, that is called client. So we have to always remember. So whenever something is asks, that is called client. So that is called client. So in this example this is our desktop, so this is called client. Now let me talk one example. So whenever we want to access something on the internet, so let's say this is our internet. So I stands for internet, or let me write it here, internet. So whenever we want to access some over the network on the internet, so something is required. So let's say here browser is required. So B stands for browser, and in browser we are using Google Chrome. So here we are using Google Chrome. Here we are using Google Chrome. So with the Google Chrome, so this is a browser, B stands for browser. So we, with the help of browser, we can access the web content, right? So we can access some web content. So in web content there could be any data. So here browser is our client. Now here browser is our client, you see. So anything which is asks for something to someone, that is called client. So here browser is our client, and the previous example, this is our desktop. So desktop is our client. Now let me talk about, so server. What is server? Let's say this is our client. So this is our desktop, and this is our server. So let's say this is our server. So client always asks to someone. So client is always asks to someone. So this always asks, and server always responds. So just remember this point, responds. So client always asks and server always responds. So what it responds? Let's say if we are using browser, so let me talk it here. So if we are using browser, and in browser we are using Google Chrome. So G stands for Google, C stands for Chrome. So Google Chrome. So if with the help of browser we want to access some information over the internet, and this server, so this server responds some data and send back response to the client. So client always asks, so client always asks, so this will be request, so this will be always request, and server always get the response and send back to the client. So this will be always response. So this will be always response. Now if we want to use this browser, so with the help of browser, when we open this browser, we have to enter some URL. Let's say in the browser we have entered some URL. So we have to enter some URL. So in URL, what we are writing here? So in this URL, we have entered, let's say www.youtube.com/Prince Testing World. So Prince Testing World. So this is Prince Testing World. So what it says, so okay, we have to access YouTube, okay, and access the Prince Testing World. So this is acting like a user. So this is acting like a user. So what it requests in the URL, with this in YouTube we have to access this user content. So whenever we will send the request to the server, so here YouTube server will be there, YS. So Y stands for YouTube and S means server. So YouTube server will just accept this request, process the request, and just analyze the request and send the data to this client. So send this data to client. What will be the client, what will be the server, and what are the request and what are the response? So let me talk it here. So this in this desktop, so in this desktop we are using browser, so we are using this browser. So this is acting like a client. So here it is acting like a client, and what we are sending the data, so we are sending this data youtube.com Prince Testing World. So this whole information, it will be acting like a request. So this will be a request. So this will be request, and to whom we are sending this request? So we are sending to YouTube server. So this will be server. So this will be server, and when the YouTube just accept this request, analyze the request, process the request and send back response to the client. So this will be always response. So this will be always response. So you got the idea, right? What is the client, what is the server, what are the requests, what are the response, and in response we will be getting here in the JSON. So in this we will be using some key and value. So with this we will be getting some value. So we will be talking in a very great detail, like what is the JSON and how we have to write, what are the different types of data types for the JSON and XML. So we will do a very great detail over there. So just understand it for now. Client always asks and server always responds. If you will remember these 2 points, so everything will be clear. Now let me talk it here. So client, client says, a client is any device or software that sends a request. So we already know that client always send a request to a server to access data or services. Okay. Now examples of client. So what could be the examples of client? So in the web browser like Chrome, if we are using Chrome in the web browser requesting a website, so this could be a one client. Now in mobile app, let's say if we are using YouTube applications, so this asking for video content, so this could be another client. Now if we are using Postman tool, so we will be using Postman tool, so this could be one client sending API request to test a service, so this is acting like a client, right? Now server. So what is server? A server is a computer or system that receives request from clients, okay, and sends back responses usually with data or services. So as we have already seen that here, so we have seen that, so client always sends some request, so this will be request REQ, and server always process the request and send back response, so this will be always response. Now come back here. So this is what it is saying. Now examples of server. So YouTube server provides video data when requested, so this is another type of server. So this is one type of server. A web browser, a web server hosts websites like google.com, so this is another type of server. And now email server. So email server send and receive emails. So how email server send and receive emails? So email server sends and receives emails. So whenever we are sending some email, so let's say this is our mail, and whenever we are sending some mail to someone, so we are sending the data, and so we will write the to whom we are sending. So let's say r@gmail.com, right? gmail.com. So Gmail server, so G stands for Gmail and S stands for server. So Gmail server will check this to whether it is available into the web or not, whether it is available in the Gmail or not. So when it will be checked and it confirmed, then this mail is delivered to the recipient address. So this is mail, so this will be client, and client is sending some, so client is P1, person 1, and here it is server, it is sending to P2. So mail, whenever we want to deliver this mail to someone, so Google server, so here Google server is one type of server. It will check to this address, whether this address is valid or not. If it is confirmed, yes, it is valid, then it will be delivered to this P2 person. So here email server send and receive emails. Now example of client and server together. So how we can take the example? So let's say when you want to test an API, so you send a request from Postman. So Postman is a client for that, and whenever you want to test the YouTube API, so YouTube server process that request and send a response, video like video info, channel data, etc. So let's say this is Postman. So this P stands for Postman. So it is checking the YouTube API. So it is checking YouTube API. Now YouTube server, so YS YouTube server. Now when Postman sends some request to test the YouTube API, so YouTube server will check that and send the request, send the response to this Postman. So here we are sending request to check the data for the YouTube, and YouTube server just accepting the request, process the data and send back to the Postman. So this is the best example for client and server. We will be using Postman, so we will be get more detail into that. So you see client server flow. So client always asks, whereas server always responds. Now client server architecture. This is one client laptop, this is mobile second client, and this is desktop, this is another client. So with all those client, if we want to get the information from server, so this is server. So how we can access that? We can access this with the help of internet. So with the help of internet we can access those server. So this is the client server architecture. So internet plays a vital role in between client and server. So without internet we cannot perform client and server mechanism. Now there are three different tiers in client server architecture. So first tier architecture, second tier architecture, and three tier architecture. So in first tier architecture, so you see that this is a red circle, right? It means it represents single machine. So in single machine there is a computer and there is a file server. So the best example could be, let's say if we are having laptop, and in laptop we are having file system, let's say notepad, word. So in the same system we are having notepad to access those. So whenever we are writing into the notepad, so we are able to see the data at the same time, and whenever we want to save those notepad at some place, so we are just saving those file at some places, right? We are able to save them. So same machines, same file system working in the same file. So this is the example of first tier architecture. Now second tier architecture, so this is in the two layer. So client tier, so in client tier there could be any number of computers, and the second layer will be database layer tier. So in database we have stored this information here. So the best example for banking systems, so there could be any number of staffs who are accessing the same database server to get the data, to fetch the data, to update the data, to delete the data. So the best example for second tier architecture is bank system. Now three tier architecture. So in three tier architecture there is three layers: client tier, database tier. So these are all the same. Now here, so till it is same. Now here it is business logic tier. So in business logic tier it adds in between client and database. So what we will do in business tier, so we will write the code, and with the help of code we have to give the permissions to connect through client and database. So here the in business logic API resides into business logic tier. So let me talk it here. So diagram of three data layers. So this is presentation layer, this is application layer, and this is data layer. So as we know that in the second layer, API resides into application layer. Now why it is saying presentation layer at the first layer? Because this presentation layer, it presents and we are able to see it, so that's why it is called presentation layer. And in application layer we are writing some code. So here API is there, so API will help to connect presentation layer and database layer. How we have to develop the API? So we have to write the code. So we can write the code in Java, .NET, C#, Python, C++, etc. Database layer, structured query language is written. Now in presentation layer, we have written some scripting language like HTML5, JavaScript, CSS. So in presentation layer we have to write some scripting language, and in application layer we have write another programming language like Java, .NET, C#, Python. And in database layer we have written some structured query language like MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL. So let's say in presentation layer scripting language is there, and in application layer some programming language is there, and in database layer some structured query language is written. Now whenever we will send some request, let's say if we clicked, so it will come to the application layer. Here API is written over here in the second layer. Now API, what it will take? So it will check the business logic. So when button is clicked, what the operation should, what's the functionality should be implemented. Now when the function is just implemented, so it will check into the database whether that data is present or not. So whether that data is present or not, it will check with the database. So when this we get the response from server, so this is server, and from this server it will send back to the API application layer, and from there it will send back to response to the presentation layer. So this is what it is. What is API? So API stands for application programming interface. So why it is called application programming interface? Because it resides in the application layer. With the help of programming, it provides some interface, right? So API is here. So it is the it resides in the application layer. In this application layer, some programming language is written like Java, .NET, C#, Python, C++, and it provides the interface to connect presentation layer and data layer to one to another. Now it is a set of rules that allows two software applications to communicate with each other. So it is a set of rules or protocols that two software communicate with each other. Now API is a bridge. So in simple language we can say API is a bridge which connects two software to talk to each other. So this is the example. Let's say this is a client. So client is sending some request to this API. So here API is there, and the API will send same request to this server. Now server process the request. So server, first of all, it will take the request, process the request, understand the request, analyze the request, and send back response to the API. Now API will send same response to the client. Now examples of API. Let's say using the YouTube API, a developer can search for videos, get video details, and fetch playlist or comments, right? Now how API works? So let me talk it here. So if I will explain it here by live demo example, so you will better understand this. So let's say this is our client. So C stands for client, and this is our server. So S denotes with server. Now client sends some request to the server. So in this, So this is a request. So client sends some request to the server. So in between it is following some http protocols, http or https protocols. In that we have to enter some URL. So URL could be, let's say, www.youtube.com slash any user, let's say user 1. So user 1 is there. So www, this is a scheme. So this is a scheme. And youtube.com, so this is called domain. And this user is called endpoint. So when we collectively just say, we have to say it URL. So we have to say URL. So whenever we are sending some URL, so it will check to the server, it will go to the server. So it will first accept this request, process the request, understand the request, analyze the result, and send back response to the client. So this will be response. Now in response, so in response what we are getting? We are getting JSON. So we are getting JSON. So JSON is represented with this curly braces, starting curly braces and ending curly braces, and in that we are having double quotes. So first of all it will be key, so let's say key 1, and then this double quotes will be closed, and then we will be having some colon, and then value 1. So if anything is it, so value 1. So if anything is in this form, then we have to understand that this is JSON. So this is JSON. So JSON will be always having key, and always it will be having value. So whenever, if we want to just, if JSON is having more key and value, then it will be separated with this comma and another. So key 2 will be there, and colon, and then value 2. So what we understood in this, so how API works. So first of all, from client we will send some request with the HTTP and HTTPS protocol. In that we are passing some URL. So URL will be in the form of a scheme, domain, and some endpoint. So with this help of this URL completely, so completely it, we are saying this is URL. So whenever we are sending this URL, so it will go to the server, and it will check the request and send back response to the client. So this, whenever we are sending this response, so it will be always JSON or XML. So if JSON will be there, then this type of annotations will be there. So let's come here. So this is what it is saying. So client sends some request. So with the help of HTTP and HTTPS protocol, we are sending some request, and in request what we are sending? We are sending some HTTP request. So HTTP request will be post, get, put, etc. So in this diagram, So in this diagram we are sending with the help of method. Now if we want to get this user one details, so we will be using get. So here I am writing like this. So whenever we will be using get, so get is for retrieves the data, retrieve data. So with this example we are sending user one, right? So we want to fetch the detail for user one, so we will be using get. So for this example, if we want to just create some user, so we will be using post. So post is for create. So post is for create. And now if we want to update this user, so we will be using put. Put is for update. And if we want to delete this user, then we will be using delete. So basically these are the HTTP methods. So these are the HTTP method. HTTP method. Basically these are the only methods that we are using in the day-to-day life. So let's come here. So all the information I have listed it into this PDF. So when you will go through all the things, you will get all the things very easily. So here client is sending some request with HTTP and HTTPS protocol with the help of HTTP methods, HTTP request. So request could be any post, get, put, etc. So whenever this request will be sent to server, so server analyze the request. First of all it will accept the request, analyze the request and send the response to the API, and now API will send the response to the client. So here client is received. Now in JSON, so we have to start the curly braces and this ending curly braces, and in those we have to write with key and value pair. So in JSON, if it will be more than key and value pair, then we have to use this comma, and key will always be denoting within double quotes. So starting the quotes and end with this ending quote, and value will always, so value could be in double quotes or without double quotes. So we have to separate this key and value with this column like this. Now let me talk about bank ATM analogy. So how we have to think like API like a bank ATM. So think of an API like a bank ATM. So first of all it says you go to an ATM, the client. So in this ATM it will be client to request money. So we are going to ATM to request some money. So in this ATM it will be client. Now the ATM send your request to the bank's internal system. So this is server. So bank ATM will request to the bank internal system. So it is requesting to someone else. So someone else, that is server. And if everything is correct, like your card, PIN, balance, the system checks back and get the response. So whenever the card, PIN, balance, everything is matched, so we as a response we get the amount, right? Now how it relates to an API. So let's say this is ATM example and API equivalent. Like you inserted your card. So this is the first scenario. So in API equivalent you have to think like you send a request. Now you enter your PIN. So you provide authentication API token as a API equivalent. Now you asked to draw 5000 rupees. So here we call an endpoint, example get balance, get your balance, and in ATM gives you money. So server returns data, that is response. So did you understand this? Yes or no? Okay, let me talk it here. Let's say this is ATM. So this is ATM. So this will be client. Because it is a asker. So asker to whom? Let me talk it further. So it will be always asker. So ask. So it will always ask. Now ATM. So when you will insert some card. So you have inserted some card over here. So let's say you have inserted some card. So this will be request. So you are requesting to server. So this is server. Now request is being sent with this card. Now you provide some pin 1 2 3 4. Let's say you provide the pin. So this is called pin. So you have authenticated with token. So you have authenticated with token. So if you provide 1 2 3 4 as a pin, so you have already authenticated the pin. Now if you will ask for 5000 rupees, so server will check into their database with your personal data. So let's say in Prince, it will check whether this account is having 5000 rupees or not. So if it is having 5000 rupees, yes, it is confirmed, and it will send some request 5000 rupees, and it will send the response to the ATM. So here we have withdrawn 5000 rupees. We have withdrawn 5000 rupees. So in the response we get this 5000 rupees. So this is all. So one more thing I would like to tell here. So when it will send some request, so whenever we will send some request, it will fetch the details. So for this Prince, it will fetch the details. So here it will use get request, get HTTP methods. So get HTTP methods it will be used. So with the help of get methods, HTTP methods, it will fetch their records from the server. From the server it will fetch the 5000 rupees. If it is confirmed yes it is available, then it will send the response to the ATM, and we will be getting 5000 rupees. So this is the basic understanding of ATM analogy. Now let's continue. So types of API. So there are two types of API, REST API and SOAP API. So REST API stands for representational state transfer, and SOAP API stands for simple object access protocol. So we will also understand in a very great detail manner so what is REST API with another series. So most common type, REST API is most common type. It uses HTTP methods like get, post, put, delete. Data is usually rendered in JSON. So in REST, data will always be represented with JSON. And example, GitHub API. So SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. It is XML based format and built for enterprise system. example, older banking system, legacy enterprise services, so they are using SOAP APIs. What is the difference between API and web service? So let's say web service means if any API, type of API that operates over a network, if any API is there, let's say if any API is there, so this is API. To once the API is available to the internet, so once this API is available to the internet, so that is called web service. Web service means any API which is available on the internet, web, that is called web service. So it mostly uses HTTP and HTTP methods. So all web services are API. So once this API is available to the internet, so all web service, so this will be web service. So this will be web service. So all web service is an API, but all API is not web service, right? So this is what it is saying. All web services are APIs, but not all APIs are web services. Now HTTP methods. So as we have understood that get is for, so these are all the HTTP methods. So basic, it is of 5 times. So in day-to-day life we are using get, post, put, patch, delete. So these are all the 5 HTTP methods that we are using in a normal day-to-day life. So get is for retrieving data, post is for creating new resources, put is for updating or replacing an existing resource, patch is for partially update a resource, and delete is for removing a resource. So we will be talking in a very detailed manner HTTP methods. So I will be creating one session for that. So there I will be talking in a very detailed manner. So that's all for this video. If you really like this video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. It boosts my confidence and way of teaching in a greater extent. So if you really like it, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.